Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. Today we are going to be going over two potential tropical cyclones in the Atlantic, and we even have one behind these two. We currently have two areas of interest that were highlighted by the National Hurricane Center, and this is just the start of another cycle of very active tropics in the Atlantic. We're already at record-breaking pace. We just saw major Hurricane Laura, and potentially we could see a couple more tropical storms or hurricanes before we get even into the end of September. So we do have a lot of time still left in the hurricane season to get to record-breaking status, and we are on track to stay as a record-breaking hurricane season. We're going to be going over some of the model guidance for these two storms, as well as some of the environmental conditions, just to show you how favorable they are for development. So here is the current National Weather Service page. We have red flag warnings in effect for the northwest. We also have some excessive heat warnings in effect for parts of the southwest. Some heat advisories all scattered throughout the south central United States. So actually some severe thunderstorm watches in effect for southern Minnesota. For Wisconsin, we have some flash flood watches, as well as for parts of the western Tennessee Valley there, due to tropical depression or tropical depression Laura now. So here it is, the 5-day graphical outlook from the National Hurricane Center. You see we have Tropical Depression Laura there in northern Arkansas, and then we have two disturbances. The disturbance further to the west currently has a 30% chance of developing within the next 5 days. Within the next 48 hours, about a 20% chance. Within the next 5 days, for disturbance number 2, we have a 30% chance of that one developing. So we definitely have a decent shot for both of these to develop, and these chances of development are going to continue to rise. Now, something that we have to point out for disturbance number 1 and also disturbance number 2, disturbance number 1, if it moves this just on the southern tip of this little area here, it will start to interact with some of the drier air that moves off the South American peninsula, and that will move northward and interact with that storm. So if this takes more of a northerly track, this will definitely be probably the most favorable track if you do want development out of this storm. So the further north this tracks, the better for development. As well for disturbance too, this one looks to actually kind of stay kind of north of the Caribbean islands, so we'll have to see about that. And that is definitely a possibility with both of these storms, that they could curve to the north. So we're really uncertain with these two storms. Currently, they haven't made this an invest yet, but once they do make either of these an invest, we will start to get more model guidance on these two storms. Now, here is the 5-day graphical outlook for the National Hurricane Center for the Eastern Pacific, and we are looking at two tropical storms, Isel there, and also Hernan, which is off the western coast of Mexico there, and both of them are going to continue to move to the north, and really Hernan is the only one that you really have to worry about, especially for western Mexico, leaving some flash flooding throughout those regions. Now, here is the 5-day graphical outlook for the Central Pacific, and we have disturbance 1 south of Hawaii, which currently has a 20% chance of developing within the next 5 days. Now, here is your chances of tropical depression formation or wind speeds over the next few days. So we do have a very decent chance, and this is showing you the chances that you'll have a tropical depression force wind speeds for both of these systems. Now, we see three different distinct areas. We have one off the coast of Africa, currently not yet named, but that will most likely soon become some sort of area of interest from the National Hurricane Center. So this would be number 3 right here. We have our second area right here, which currently has probably the best chance of developing at this time, or has the best certainty of developing. And then we have disturbance number 1 here, which currently has a decent shot of developing, but it does look to interact with a lot of land, and that will really weaken the storm. But we have 3 distinct areas that could form into some sort of tropical depression, if not a tropical storm. We do see for both disturbance number 2, and then also that disturbance off the coast of Africa, we do have some decent chance of about 5 to about 20 or 25% chance of seeing some tropical storm force wind speeds. Now, Here's your infrared satellite, and this is your forecasted infrared satellite, and we're going to kind of follow the storm. So this is currently what it's looking like. We see that storm that is going to move off the coast of Africa. We see disturbance number 2 and disturbance number 1 right here, and both of them are elongated. Disturbance number 1, which is the one that's going to be furthest to the west, is very elongated, moving kind of southwest to northeast, and that will really weaken the system. You really want a smaller system. That's where you really get most of the development, because it is easier to develop a smaller storm than a larger storm. Now, you start to see the first disturbance starts to weaken really, but then that gives way for the second disturbance to really start to get going and get its energy. Now, we're going to look at the European model and the GFS model. So right now we're looking at the European, and then we'll look at the GFS a little bit later. Now, here is by Monday, and we are looking at a decent developing system from disturbance number 2. We also start to see that disturbance off the coast of Africa start to really get going, and then we see just some isolated thunderstorms that would be disturbance number 1 by that point. So it's really breaking apart for disturbance 1. Now, it starts to reform in the southern Caribbean, and you start to see all of these systems pretty much start to really get going. We have that disturbance off the coast of Africa. We then have disturbance 2, and then we have disturbance 1 there. All of them really starting to get going, and then if we move this forward a little bit, this would be by Friday, and we are seeing a lot of convection actually starting to blow up in the Caribbean as well, just in the middle of the Atlantic, pretty much. That would be disturbance 2, and then that disturbance off the coast of Africa really starting to get going, and then here is by this would be by Sunday, and this is your last frame, but you do start to see a very, very strengthening storm over Western Africa. Then we also have disturbance 2, which is starting to make that northeasterly or northwesterly turn, and then we start to see all this convection north of the Yucatan Peninsula. That's really what disturbance 1 would be by that point. So we do start to see that mainly that disturbance off the coast of Africa, and also disturbance 2 is starting to really get going. Disturbance 1 probably has the hardest road ahead, because it is moving south of the Caribbean, so it has a lot of land masses to kind of avoid and dodge. Now, here is the GFS model, and this one only goes out about 120 hours or so. So it doesn't go out too far. It doesn't go as far out as the European for the infrared satellite forecast, but we can get a decent idea of what it thinks is going to happen. Now, here is disturbance 1 right here, this large area of convection. Here's disturbance 2, and then you can't really see the disturbance over Africa by this point yet. Now, you start to see this would be by Saturday, and now by Monday, you're starting to really see these systems kind of separate. So this would be disturbance 1 by this point. Here's disturbance 2, and you're starting to see the disturbance off of Africa start to develop. And by the way, this disturbance off of Africa, the GFS really develops into a major hurricane off the east coast. It definitely looks unlikely, but it does go to show you how intense these storms can get if they are given these favorable of conditions and if no land masses interact with them. So I'm going to show you that image later on in the video. It is very, very surprising, and it has been showing up on multiple runs for the past couple of days on the GFS. Now, here are some of the environmental conditions, and we do see we have very, very warm conditions especially over much of the Atlantic. Some of the areas that just got impacted with Laura really have some slightly below average temperatures. That's mainly just because Laura upwelled some of that cooler water, but that will start to warm over the next couple of days. But for much of the Atlantic, it is very, very above average, and that is quite abnormal for this time of year. Now, here's what that means for actual sea surface temperatures, and we are looking at anywhere in that yellow, orange, or red. That is above 80 degrees Fahrenheit, and that is favorable for storms to develop, and we see that all throughout the Atlantic. So anywhere these storms really go, they're going to be in favorable enough waters. Now, here is the frame, if you were curious, of that potential hurricane that the GFS was spinning up. Now, I don't think this is very likely at all, but I just want to let you guys know that if these storms have the right ingredients, it could definitely develop into this. If you're wondering what the track was of this storm, that the GFS does want to kind of form. It did move off the coast of Africa, so it would be the Africa storm, and it kind of just moved north of the Caribbean, stayed in all these warm waters, and then started to move up the east coast. So if that does happen, it's not impossible that we could see something like that if it does take that track. Now the biggest question is, how does the upper air set up if it'll allow for that? I don't think that is very likely at this point, but just keep your eye on that over the next couple of days. I'm really just gonna kind of look at the GFS pretty much every day, just see what it's doing and see if it keeps the storm going. Then we might have to be a little bit concerned, and I'll definitely update you guys if that does look a little bit more likely over the next couple of days. Now, here is again that frame, and that is going to wrap it up for today's video. Please consider liking the video, subscribing, and turning on notifications if you do enjoy the content. Anyways, guys, I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.